Thank you everyone for staying with us. The issue of insecurity in the Southeast has been on the front burner for a long time. There have been real concerns, very concrete concerns around the factor of Nnamdi Kanu. A lot of persons said that, well, the Southeast is still what it is today because Nnamdi Kanu is in detention. Therefore, they've called for a political solution to the issue of Kanu rather than waiting for this litigation process to cycle out. And how that is going to turn out, we're yet to see. We only know that the last time the gentleman asked for Justice Binta Nyako to recuse herself and that another judge should be assigned, but that has not happened because we understand that the authorities have again reassigned Justice Nyako to that case. That's one story. Another concern is saying that, look, Samuel Ikpa, a Nigerian of Southeast extraction who lives in Finland, is the 2IC that is sending command to Mr. Nnamdi Kanu. Therefore, no matter what you do to Nnamdi Kanu, for as long as Mr. Ila still is holding sway, and just a few days ago, people say, well, thank God, at least we can now have some, breathe some fresh air.
Exactly.
But that doesn't seem to be the case because we're still hearing about pockets of violence across the Southeast up until today. And then let's carry from that elite to say, what now happens to Samuel Ikpa? Well, first of all, like we said, he's in detention there in Finland. Back at home, his extradition is being requested by Nigeria, or at least we hear that his extradition will be requested. And then the authorities at home in Nigeria are now saying that anyone who has supported him in any way, financially, technically, or with intel whatsoever, will also be charged with the same issue of terrorism or sponsoring or financing or what have you. So it's quite a complicated, protracted case that we're dealing with here. We're joined by someone who has a handle on security and intelligence issues via Zoom from Kano this morning to help us make sense of all of this issue. Thank you, Yahuza Adesso Ahmed, for making our time this busy morning to join us.
Good morning, viewers. Good morning, Mr. Simon.
All right, so my colleague, Juma Manson, and I will engage for the next 25-30 minutes about this issue. I'd like us to begin with the trouble in the Southeast. We are talking a lot about the northwest of Nigeria, the northeast of Nigeria, but let's turn our attention for a minute to the Southeast. How do we get to this point where the Southeast has become a flashpoint in this country?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm talking to you from the northeastern part of the country, not from Kano precisely. And I believe that the situation in the south, north central, northwest, southeast, and all wherever you may say, or we may look at, the issue is just to have a serious government, a serious leadership, a serious interest, and for us to really be serious on fighting this insurgency or issues of security in the south especially. The arrest of Mr. Effa, yes, it's good to arrest whosoever is terrorizing against the state. All the non-state actors shouldn't be allowed to play their role or to do whatever they can as they want it. We should definitely have a system that will help in sanitizing and ensuring that a kind of respected. But the issue, there are questions. One, what is really leadership? Two, what are the challenges of lack of competitiveness that are leading to competitiveness among the security agencies? Three, how have the government been able to handle the issue of corruption? Are we only handling it in respect to just discussing it, or making public statements, or making policies that are not being implemented? Four, why are we always not telling the truth to the public? And 5, why the government and the security agencies have not been able to provide a feedback to the communities and to the citizens of Nigeria on arrest of many people that have been apprehended, especially those found importing light weapons and ammunition and other things. And number 6, how have we been serious in managing these security challenges? I have said it time without number, and I'm going to repeat myself, that the security challenges in Nigeria are manageable. It's something we can handle. We have the capacity, we have the ability, we have the quality of the personnel to do it. Are we still waiting for somebody to come from foreign lands to come and provide us, to provide the right security? And finally, how have we been faring in 3 aspects? 1, recruitment of personnel. 2, welfare of the serving personnel. And 3, civil engagements. If we have not been doing well in this respect, then our intelligence monitoring and intelligence gathering and operations will continue to fail. And then south-south and southeast, wherever you have the Biafran or the Biafran agitators or the south-south agitators or the bandits in the south, northwest and north central, or the Boko Haram, ISWAP and SARU as the north central and northeastern part of the country, or the Lakurawa that have started since sometimes in 2017 and will become so relaxed and relaxed until 2004. Then we are telling the Nigerian public that there is emergence of a new institution that is called Lakurawa, which I know and I have said it. They have been there since 2017 and I have been conducting a number of discussions on local and international media about. So for how long are we going to continue deceiving ourselves? And for how long are we going to be investing huge amount of money, borrowing and raising the debts on us that cannot be able to be paid by even our grand and grandchildren? How are we going to be, how and when are we going to be serious? And why are we not really achieving anything partially, I can say? Or the criminal groups that we have, or the non-state actors that we have, all of them are not up to 1.01 of the total population of the country. In fact, they are not even 1.0 decimal of the total number of the security personnel that we have. So if it means that this is the number that we have, and our security personnel, despite the huge amount of investment that is being made, and yet nobody is doing anything and nobody is achieving anything. We are only having political statements, political gatherings, and then a policy review and maybe a kind of press address without facts, without achieving and success on us. What we need to have is to have results, not only to have the story. We need to have result. What we need is the result, not a story, not public statements, not press conference, not media feedback. What we need is a result. The result is, are we still having stay at home? Are people still being killed? Are Biafrans still possessing more and additional arms? Are these agitators, how have we been faring in managing the circumstance of the legal issues? Is our judicial system really working? What have we been doing for all this while that we cannot finish the case of Nnamdi Kanu? It's really the judiciary. Why are we always postponing? Why can't we do the needful? Why can't we also arrest? And why can't we cordon the areas where Biafran agitators are? To either have a dialogue or have them deleted so that we move on. Nigeria is one, but everybody knows his mother's room. And everybody, even in the mother's room, everybody knows the right corner to stay. So if we really want to have the unity in the country, Let's have it. And let's be serious. And let's be committed. And let's be honest. Let's stop deceiving ourselves and deceiving Nigerians. And let's really check on how much have we been investing in our in terms of technology in respect to security. How have we been using imbibing the technological measures in terms of maybe use of drones and other technological measures that the world is changing or is driving to? And how have our forces been able to provide, how have we been able to provide welfare, to provide their welfare promotion? And what type of personnel have we been recruiting? And for how long will we be making our recruitment to be a political reward? And how can that help us? Are we really interested in moving forward, or we are still politicizing the security situation in the country? And for how long? And where will this take us? Will really this take us to the promised land? There are so many several questions I can ask.
All right, Mr. Yahuza, I have a question to ask. Now, I want to, what's your take on the potential consequences of targeting prominent individuals like Sawa Akbar in curbing insecurity in the eastern part of Nigeria?
Well, if it is done with sincerity and honesty, I believe we are on the right track. Because those are the leaders, those are the mobilizers, those are the key players against the state. And no state will allow anybody to be above this, and nobody is above the Constitution. If we can sincerely be managing and apprehending and dealing with them by what the law says, it's quite encouraging, and it's a laudable effort. I commend President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration and that of the security leadership for their effort to target those individuals who are responsible in leading a terrorizing against the state. It's good to handle them and to manage them accordingly, but they shouldn't be allowed to stay longer. The prosecution, the legal process should be done as soon as possible and as short as possible. That could serve as a deterrent for others. No state will allow non-state actors to do and undo as they want and as they wish.
All right.
I commend President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yes, Mr. Yahuza, we need to apologize to you. We need to take a quick break, and we do hope you stay with us because there's a whole lot we need to unpack in the course of this conversation, including, for example, the calls now for the extradition of Simon Ikpa to Nigeria. So we're going to look at what is likely going to happen now that he's been arrested in Finland, vis-a-vis what could take place in the event that the man is extradited to his home country, which is Nigeria. Do stay with us, everyone. We're back shortly. All right, now we're back to the conversation we're having a while ago. I would like to say a big thank you to you, Getso, for staying with us on this program. So, you were making a point a while ago about what it means for someone like Simon Ikpa to be arrested and how it can contribute to the efforts to curb insecurity in the Southeast. I'm sure you'd like to pick up your thoughts from that point.
Well, like I was saying, the arrest of Simon Ekpa is quite a commendable effort, and that to tells you how Nigeria partners with other countries in generating intelligence and managing the intelligence and utilizing the intelligence.
Oh, okay, so let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the cause for his extradition. People say, well, someone like former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, did 5 years in jail in London because it was a different jurisdiction. That if the same charges had been brought against him in a place like Nigeria, it would be on the flip side. In other words, the same outcome will not happen. Now, Simon Ikpa has been held by the Finnish authorities, and there are calls, even from the Nigerian authorities, that say, look, let's have him extradited. I mean, given your background in security and intel, which is better if justice needs to be done for all parties involved? Is it for him to be tried, to be prosecuted where he currently is, or to be brought back to his home country and be tried and what have you? And are you still there, Getso? Okay, it will appear we lost the audio stream there for a second. But the question is at the heart of whether or not the man should be brought home to be tried, to be prosecuted, or whether he should be left in Finland, given what we have seen with Nigerians who had before now been sent to jail abroad. But for most Nigerians, particularly the good people in the Southeast, the concern is the extent to which these arrests and his subsequent prosecution will better the fight against insecurity in the Southeast. I mean, go to Anambra, for example, all the way to Enugu, Imo, then of course you talk about Abia and Ebonyi. It's virtually the same phenomenon across these 5 states in the Southeast. And the government back at home is saying that everyone who has supported Simon Ikpa one way or another will face similar charges as him. But whether or not that is going to happen anytime soon, we're not so sure. But hopefully we have Getso back on. Are you there now?
Yes, I'm here with you.
All right. Just in case you didn't get my earlier question, I was asking, given your background in security and intel, what would you say should happen going forward? Is it for Simon Ikpa to be extradited back to Nigeria for prosecution, or for him to be tried in the jurisdiction where he currently is being held?
No, I think the best way is for him to be extradited to Nigeria and to face the law where he commits the offense, to whom he committed the offense to. Because the offenses are committed against Nigerian states, not against Finland state. Even though Finland, by their law, they may also have some charges against him. So let him also be tried by the Finland administration if at all they have any law that he committed an offense based on what he has been doing. Of course, definitely, I guess as much, there should be a cross of some of the jurisdiction in relation to bilateral and international law. So if that is found, he should be charged accordingly, and then he should be also extradited to Nigeria so that he can face the rest of the law in Nigeria, and also that could assist in sending message for others who really want to act against the state. Because Nigerian state is a sovereign state, like all other sovereign states of the world. So, and Simon Ekpa is a citizen of Nigeria, even though he may have double citizens, that of Nigeria and that of Finland. But if he is honest and sincere, and he's really charting the course of Biafra. He shouldn't have been out of Nigeria. How can you be somewhere out and then misleading the young guys that could have been used for building a more developed Nigeria and a more united Nigeria, and whose brain could have been more useful in building the Nigerian economy?
Right.
If you are honest and sincere, it is better you are back in Nigeria, stay within, and fight the cause. There are many other Biafran leaders who are fighting the cause in Nigeria. And nobody, even if they are facing harassment, struggles is usually, you cannot, even myself, that I am conducting a voluntary research to find the issues around the security challenges. I am facing, what of somebody who is charting the
We'll have to, for technical reasons, we'll have to end this conversation here, Mr. Yahuza. It's quite challenging, even trying to make out your valuable contributions, given the quality of sound, the audio. But I'd like to say a big thank you to you for your contribution so far. We do not take all of that for granted. We'll take a break at this point, everyone. Shortly, we'll turn to a different conversation altogether. We'll be taking a look at the tax reform bills by the executive arm of government under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu, now in front of the National Assembly. If you have followed the news the last 2-3 weeks, you probably are at home with the controversies that these legislative proposals have generated. We'll talk to you about all of those and then provide you with highlights and insights shortly. Do stay with us. I thank everyone for staying with us. Quite a number of things happened last week, like we said at the top of the program this morning. Just before we jump right into our second conversation, last week we saw this particular weekend in particular, SERAP, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Projects, the one we popularly call SERAP, telling President Tinubu to say, look, there's some 57 billionaire missing in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Of course, we know what happened with that ministry earlier in the year with the likes of the former minister, Dr. Betta Edu, and now just recently on account of this rejigging and reshuffling of cabinet, the ministry now has a new minister. However, SERAP is pushing for an investigation, a very thorough one for that matter, into some 57 billion naira said to be missing from that ministry. Because the concerns, several concerns around this issue and the ministry itself. We had a minister in that same ministry before Betta Edu, our immediate predecessor, who was also accused of graft. Her case is still in front of the EFCC. Betta Edu's case is not different, in front of the EFCC as well. Right. One of the concerns is how that a ministry that's supposed to be humanitarian, all right, a ministry that's supposed to help those in need, particularly women and children, or those who have been trapped, all right, exactly, in misfortune of natural disasters, flooding, and so on and so forth. All right, it's now being caught in the web. In some sense, and all of that. It raises concerns around issues around transparency, because it was in this same ministry we saw one time where cash handouts were being given to people in the name of conditional cash transfer. All right, concerns also were raised at the time about how do you give out cash to people in this day and age. This is 2022, this is 2023, it's not ideal, and so on and so forth. And the defense that Nigerians got at the time, or the response was, well, because these are people who are not banked. These are part of the unbanked in the country. So they don't have an account to start with. Therefore, how do you reach them with cash other than give them by hand? That's why we're doing all of this. But then data became a problem at the end, because the ministry could not tell Nigerians the number of persons in specific terms who had benefited from these initiatives and what the amount came to, apart from some bogus figure that got bandied around, at the time and things like that. So the question you're asking yourself is, has the practice, quote and unquote, in the ministry changed? Now, if almost a year after Betta Edu was removed from office, we are still talking about some 57 billion naira that has not been accounted for.
It's just unfortunate that we keep going back and forth when it comes to issues like this, like you mentioned, especially that particular ministry, humanitarian. It's just unfortunate that we see these sort of things play out and no accountability at the long run. Like you mentioned in the beginning, we should have like a reform that talks about this, the guidelines that follows. It should be enacted. It's very important that most of these ministers who are in these positions, do they really understand what this particular ministry entails? One, do they really understand what they bring, let me use the word bring to the table when it comes to relief materials for individuals who are vulnerable, women, children, and all of that? And you see a lot of people hiding these funds and being greedy when they're in power. It's just unfortunate that we find ourselves in this, and my gender are the ones that are actually performing these acts when it comes to issues like this. It's just unfortunate that this is where we find ourselves in Nigeria, and this is where we are at the moment. No accountability, no transparency. It's just really unfortunate. That's basically it.
It's quite a sad thing, but SERAP has never failed in this sort of thing, calling out government on issues about accountability, transparency, and good governance. It's not to say that this is peculiar to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. All right, we have had, in some cases, worse reports coming out from other ministries. But again, like I highlighted, because this has to be humanitarian initiatives, so it's only natural that all eyes will be there, because you want to know exactly what has happened. Such monies are meant for some very critical projects that should impact people's lives, particularly in rural communities, in ways that are remarkably positive. So if you can account for such monies, if, for example, allegedly some persons have lined their pockets with these monies, it simply means that somebody somewhere in one little corner in this country has been denied access to maybe sanitary items, to basic food items, or even healthcare, for example. So It is very important, natural and human, to continue to push this narrative as much as we can. There is a second narrative we're pushing this morning on the program, which has to do with the reform bills that is right now at the National Assembly. Let's take a break. When we come back, our guest, a lawyer and someone who is very skilled in issues around development, will help us find sense in what exactly is happening with these bills and what ideally should be happening going forward.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bonds, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is business.
All right, let's turn to matters of tax now, particularly in light of the proposals that have now been advanced by the executive arm of the federal government to the National Assembly. Say, look, these are proposals, these are bills. Take a look at them first, all right, and see how we can make them law. Proposals, these are bills. Take a look at them first, all right, and see how we can make them laws going forward for the betterment and prosperity of Nigeria as an entity. But a part of that entity, a very significant and crucial chunk of it, 19 state governors now say we're not comfortable with this proposition as it stands right now. We either withdraw or we amend. In any case, for you to even amend, you have to withdraw first.
Very true.
But the president says we're going forward with it. In fact, if anybody has any concern, they should advance it to the National Assembly for consideration, and they can also use the window of the public hearing to do all of that. What is the implication of these developments we're seeing in light of these tax reform bills? We're joined by Eze Onyekbe, is a lawyer and development expert, to help us understand what exactly the nitty-gritty issues are in these bills. Mr. Onyekbe, we appreciate you joining us this Monday morning.
My pleasure being here.
All right. So, my colleague and I, Jemai Manson, will spend the next few minutes just talking to you along this line. But let's get started by asking, this is not the first time that we'll find bills being proposed to the National Assembly regarding taxation and all of the frameworks around it. What makes this particular set of laws, or if you like, these particular bills, different from what we have seen in recent past?
Well, let me start by saying that the tax reform bills appear more fundamental in terms of the reforms they propose for the entire system of taxation in Nigeria. And that's why it's attracting a lot of attention. First of all, what it's proposing is some level of harmonization. Instead of tens of tax laws and policies all over the place, which is retarding the ease of doing business and being an unnecessary burden to individuals and taxpayers. The bills seek to introduce harmony and reduce the number of taxes so that it becomes easier for people who are supposed to pay tax to comply. It also tries to bring more people into the tax net in terms of introducing digitalization and technology so that it will be more difficult to evade taxation, and of course to review the sharing formula, derivation formula in value-added tax and quite a number of other taxation systems. Instead of allowing the different agencies to be collecting revenue, more or less is harmonizing it and bringing everything under one agency, which I hope will reduce the cost of collection of all these taxes so that at the end of the day, more revenue may be available to the federal government and the states for developmental purposes.
All right. Just before Jumai jumps in, I'd like to ask you this real quick. It appears these reforms being proposed regarding the tax system in Nigeria are a bit radical compared to where we are coming from. But let's get to the root of the reason or reasons 19 governors from one region of the country would kick against this kind of proposition across party lines.
Well, I think taxation in Nigeria should be beyond regionalism or saying you are from part one or part two of the country. I think the major thing that I learned the northern state governors are criticizing is the issue of derivation in VAT. The derivation principle has been increased more or less to about 60% of the VAT that should accrue to states. You recall that federal government was taking 15%, state government, local governments about 35%, and the remaining was accruing to states. In fact, the new tax regime has convinced the federal government to part with 5 out of their 15, so they're going to take home 10 again, and so that money is going to be added to the states. So instead of having the derivation, which we currently have, where derivation is claimed on where companies have their head offices, like most of the big companies have their head offices in Lagos or maybe Ogun State. And so if, for instance, it's a soft drink and the company has its head office in Lagos, that means the consumption from across Nigeria will be credited to that head office. And that is that company will derive more of the benefits of derivation. Now they're saying it is going to be based on consumption. Whatever you consume in your state, you
I'll have to bump in on you for a second if you don't mind. We'll have to take a break so we can quickly fix the glitch with your audio. Please do stay with us. The rest of the program will return shortly.
that borders on population as a basis for
We appreciate you staying with us, everyone. Mr. Yekbere was making a point a while ago about some of the reasons the 19 northern state governors who have been against this proposed, if you like, consideration or amendment. So, Mr. Yekbere, thank you for your patience. By the way, would you like to just pick up your thoughts from that point where you left off a while ago?
So what I was saying is that those who oppose to the bill should sit down and do some form of empirical calculation to see if in actual fact they are going to be worse off when the new bill becomes law than they are today, or that they may even benefit. I do not see a valid reason in terms of what they're proposing why they should oppose the bill, because I believe at the end of the day, they may even get more or not less than they are currently getting as at today. Hello?
All right, we took a break off quickly, everyone, just so our guest is very quickly fix the glitch with his audio and then rejoin us to wrap up this conversation this morning. The issue of the reforms being proposed by the executive arm of the government of President Bola Tinubu have become controversial now, when ordinarily we should be pushing the narrative around how these reforms can be better, of course, to expedite the process of passing them at the National Assembly, and then when they are passed, and then of course the President signs them into law, we begin to talk about effective implementation of same. But that's not the issue now, because the National Economic Council had asked for a withdrawal of these bills, which the President said shouldn't happen because he has a different perspective altogether. And that said, the question of what happens next or what happens going forward is very important. Some of those were the issues Mr. Onyegbere will be addressing this morning, including, for example, what the cogent reasons are for all 19 northern governors to kick against this bill, to say it's not in their overall interest. So what exactly are the issues there? To understand from the information available in public space that it has to do with the VAT, that's the value-added tax. All right, that element is very core. All right, because as it stands right now, if passed into law, it means states will be in charge of their value-added taxes. So the VAT will not go into the federal coffers anymore, which again, the northern state governors have concern around. As a matter of fact, that's a major concern, their major point of concern, because states will now be in charge of VAT. So whatever you generate in these states by way of value-added tax stays in that state, doesn't find its way into the national coffers. All right, so the northern states are saying that that will not be in our overall interest, because before now, for decades, the practice has been that the value-added taxes go into, all right, the federation account from where we do our normal sharing on the 17th of every month across all the states in the country and all of that. So if you remove that element of VAT or VAT as we call it, it simply means that there will be a depletion of some kind. And if you do that, it's going to be you shooting us in the foot.
Very true. And it's just unfortunate that the reforms it's not beneficial to all. It's beneficial to some individuals and not to all. But hopefully, let us see how this plays out, since the President stood on his grounds concerning this particular reforms that is ongoing right now. But at the same time, we should look at it critically, that individuals should understand that it's not about a single individual. It's about how it affects each and every one of us, these reforms. And talking about this reform, how is it going to affect the current tax system that we have in Nigeria as we speak now? We really need to look into it. We need to nip it in the bud and see how well it plays out. Like I mentioned, it's not just one person, it's everyone. It's going to affect even the lowest person in Nigeria. So we should look at it critically and see and create that balance, which is very, very important.
Right, well, a balance, we're not so sure of balance, Juma, because when you talk about issues of taxes and you talk about revenue, you talk about derivation, for example, balance is not the concern. It's always equilibrium. Well, not even something close to that. As sciences, it's almost about equity. Equity, again, it's almost in contrast with fairness, because equity requires you to give to people according to the proportion of their contribution.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. If you join a vehicle from the central business district of Abuja, let's say you do a cab, you hail a cab, as they say, from the CBD, all right, to, let's say, Apple Legislative Quarters, there's an amount you pay. But if I do a ride from Apple, for example, all the way to, let's say, Gwagwalada, there's an amount I'll pay. We're not paying the same amount. Even by the same driver, the same vehicle, who has bought fuel at the same pump price. I don't know if you get the point.
I do.
So you won't say, well, when you took July from CBD to Apple, she paid you 2,000, you didn't complain. You are taking away from CBD to Gwagwalada, I'm giving you 2,000, you're rejecting it. No, the driver is telling you the mileage between CBD and Apple, where I gave you my ride, is not the same as the mileage between CBD and Gwagwalada, where I gave Uyi a ride. Therefore, you're not talking about balance. So I can't say, no, you have to be fair to me. Let's have balance. If you collected 2K from Juma, you've got to also collect 2K from
Oui.
That's the argument that one of these bills, the one that has to do with VAT, is having. Right.
What I'm trying to say is, the 19 governors have said this bill does not favor us.
Exactly, so we will not support it.
I will not support it.
Yes.
The balance I am talking about is let it be favorable to all. It
So how do we achieve that? Let me put you on the spot for a second.
No, how do you achieve it? We have to come to the drawing board
Right.
and stretch it out so that there will be a balance. I won't say because I'm from the northern part of Nigeria, this bill doesn't
Right.
favor me, or I'm from the southern part, it favors me more. No, it
So I'm happy about it.
I am happy. So both parties must be happy about it in order for us to move forward.
Right.
So there shouldn't be that controversy of, oh my goodness, it favors the southern part more than the northern part. No, it should favor all. We should all come to a round table.
As long as they are Nigerian states.
As long as exactly, very importantly. So that balance is, we come to the round table, this is it, this is the proportion in which it is, this is how it's going to go, and then everyone is, okay, fine, this is how it is. So that's the balance I'm talking about. Not one person saying, or the other party saying, oh my goodness, it's more favorable to the southern part than to the northern part, or more favorable to the northern part, to the eastern part. No, we should all come to the drawing board and know that this affects individuals. It doesn't matter how big or how small. Like the example that you just made about, okay, going from the CBD to Apo area. Of course, there's tax involved and every other thing. So we must create that balance for it to favor both of us. It's not just a one-man show.
Okay.
It's for everyone.
I think the good thing, Juma, ultimately is that there's going to be public hearing on these things, because whether you like it or not, there must be wide, broad-based consultation, all right, before you even talk about passing this kind of thing. Let everybody come, including the 19 state governors, civil society organizations, and maybe all of those agencies that are key stakeholders in all of this. Let them also make their presentation by way of public hearing, so that we understand what the imports of these propositions or these reforms are as being proposed, and how exactly it will benefit every corner of Nigeria.
And I'm more concerned about the tax system, how this actually will impact the tax system in which we have presently in Nigeria. It's because tax, everyone pays tax. It doesn't matter how big or how small, there's always tax incurred in whatever you do. That bill, you see that TAX is always there for you to pay tax or VAT or whatever it is. So it's very important that we all understand. Most Nigerians do not understand what the tax payment system is all about. They don't even understand why you have to reduce part of my money when I perform a transaction or whatever.
Right.
That awareness needs to be made. Like I always say, it's not just a one-man show. Everyone needs to understand the value that this particular reform will bring to us, what impact it will make to you and I. It's very important that we know these things. I think by the time we have that particular that stage and that topic discussed, everyone will understand, okay, fine, okay, this is the beneficial impact of this particular tax reform, this is what it will bring to the table, this is what it will do for us as a Nigerian, as a country, moving forward, and see how betterment will continue.
All right, tax issue is a bit complicated,
Very.
not about that, but let's take another break. I will return to be that opportunity for us to wrap it all off on the program this Monday morning. Do stay with us. Well, now we're hearing that Dangote refinery has reduced the price of petrol by 20 naira. Now, not for end users, not for consumers like you and I, but for marketers. So Ipman is maybe excited about this. 20 naira is a lot of money, not when you look at it from the standpoint of a liter, but volume. All right. So if you buy, let's say, 100,000 liters, it becomes, it starts becoming significant on that level. All right. So 20 naira for those who understand. So if you remove 20 naira per liter on the Dangote end, the question is, would that reflect when the fear for? Those are the questions we'll be asking. Because two things Nigerians have been demanding in recent times. One is availability, unfettered access to petroleum products, particularly fuel. The second is the price at which it sells. Nigerians are tired of today is 650, tomorrow is 900. The day that follows is 1,150, and things like that. So we're hoping that the price continues to drop because now we understand the NNPC has said no more imports of petrol. So let's begin to look inward. Let's begin to see how much we can harness to its fullest the Dangote blessing, as I like to call it, because what I like to know, there are people who say that we do not even understand what the Dangote refinery means for Nigeria. But we're just going to wait for a second before going to one of the issues around the worry, not necessarily worry. Talk about the Port Harcourt refinery, which has sent several promises of turnaround. Of course, none of which have happened so far.
But as like you said, it's a step in the right direction. Like 20 naira is a lot. It will definitely have an impact on us Nigerians because market.
If it reflects at the pump.
If it reflects at the exactly, if it reflects at the pump, Nigerians will be happy.
Right.
We are tired of going back and forth when it comes to reduction, increment. Let's just be stable. It's very important that we understand that. But as much as the price of petrol is high now, a lot of people cannot afford that commodity. It is a very expensive commodity for some.
Right.
Like I mentioned earlier on in the morning, a lot of businesses have collapsed because there is no power to function when it comes to their businesses. But with this is a step in the right direction. If that's an if with a big IF, it reflects in the pump price, which is very, very important. But I pray it does, because like you said, the Dangote blessings, like you just mentioned. So, and I like the fact that we're looking inward now. No more looking outwardly and all of that, inwardly, to see how we can better ourselves and see how we can strive and move forward. So I think there is a sense of hope. If it affects the pump price, there is hope, and we know that things are taking shape. So as much as there is, we have, of course, we cannot have it all, like people will say. But as much as there is economic hardship, there is food inflation and all of that. But with this now, as long as it reflects in the pump, I think things will become stable really, really soon. So at least the administration is, at least now we can see that there's a little bit of, we are seeing the work in progress that the President is talking about, that things will be better soon.
Right. Well, we keep having this call, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the Port Harcourt refinery would have been a complement, at least to whatever it is, was seeing come out of the Dangote refinery, because that's Nigeria owned. Not just one major one in Port Harcourt, we have 2 refineries there in that city. Of course, we have one in Warri. There's a 4th one in Kaduna. So Nigeria is led to 4 refineries. Experts now say that these refineries are not, no longer can stand the test of time, because they say these are refineries that have done several decades, and as such, wear and tear, corrosion effect would have happened to the installation. As of yesterday, for instance, key stakeholders in the O&G sector, that is the oil and gas sector, are saying that at least 50% of the piping across these refineries are nothing to be written home about, and as such, they now blame half of the problems that we have with oil leakage, oil spillage, on this phenomenon. That is the fact that this piping system is old and weak, and as such needs an upgrade. Who's having that conversation? For a country that still spends billions of naira every year in the name of turnaround maintenance, your pay staff. Joe, it's amazing to know that there are people still work at these refineries, all 4 of them across the country. So you're asking, what value are they bringing to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, including Nigerians themselves in particular?
It's also unfortunate, Uyi, that this is where we are. This is where we find ourselves. People look at the bigger picture. They don't see that the smaller ones that are there are the ones that actually make the most impact. It's just unfortunate that we see these sort of things, and with the billions of naira in which is being spent on these refineries, unfortunately we hear the pipelines are rusted, nothing to write home about. Uyi. It's just unfortunate that people make it look as an oversight just for the kind of things that they put in their pocket. But like I said, this is where we found ourselves in Nigeria, except when the right thing is done and we have a monitoring committee. I keep reflecting back to the president's speech. Anthony was saying, this is a broken record. I keep saying that because he says when he puts people in place, there will be a monitoring committee to monitor what. Very funny. A monitoring committee for the right and the needful thing to be done. Like I said, transparency, accountability, you cannot take it away when it comes to political space. It's very important that people see through that so that they'll be able to beat their chest and say, okay, fine, this person in which we have actually put in this particular position is representing us and representing us well. So it's very important people should understand that balance in order for us to move forward. And those in those political in that political office should learn to do the needful. It's very important. It's just unfortunate that this is where we find ourselves, and with the billions of naira that are being used and individuals who are there, nothing to show for, nothing to take home. It's just unfortunate.
Well, incidentally, it happens that, the president is the de facto Minister of Petroleum Resources. Of course, the leadership of the APC and the president's media handlers at the viewer have said that's not true. But again, I used that word advisedly, de facto, because yes, the president will not officially be Minister of Petroleum Resources, but since for a long time, at least that has happened even under former President Olusegun Obasanjo at a point, and then it has happened under former President Muhammadu Buhari for 8 years. And then President Tinubu has again picked up that culture and continued it, where we don't have a substantive minister in the industry. Instead, we don't have two ministers of states, one in charge of oil, the other one in charge of gas. So the question is, would we do better if we had leading minister, if you had a substantive minister for oil and for petroleum resources in this country, in such a way that we have a leadership at that level, and then of course whether the industry or the sector will be better led, issues will be better resolved in such a way that we have a system that is vibrant and robust at the same time. That has obviously the case. I'm sure the issue of oil and gas will never end in this country one way or another.
I don't think so. That's the money well. So I don't think that will end anytime soon. Money spinner, yes. And with that, we have to wrap up the program this morning. And thank you all for staying with us till this time. And join us same time tomorrow on the program Global Morning. Have an amazing day ahead. I am Jubai Manson and my co-host. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
To Global Morning.
Death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.